You're listening to Healing in Hindsight, a health and wellness podcast where we strive to conquer type 2 diabetes. Hosted by me, Taylor Daniele. When I was first diagnosed, I didn't have a lot of people around my age who lived similar lifestyles to learn from. I want you to know you're not alone, and we'll have real, honest, and vulnerable conversations about it all. Here, I share my struggles, tips, and more. There's just something so interesting and magical about being able to connect with people who really understand you and have a way of giving you perspective that you kind of already knew in a way, at least for myself subconsciously. I feel like I've known a lot about myself that I just didn't want to acknowledge because I couldn't really see it. But having a group that is willing to not only be honest and transparent about how they view you and see you, but also to be able to confirm and validate a lot of your actions and interactions and intuitions, really. And so there's something about the last couple of years where I've really felt a surge and a solidification of the people that are in my life and that they're meant to be here with me. They're meant to help me stay on track of my North Star and where I want to be in my life. And there's just something so powerful about that. You know, we come into this world alone, but it's not on your own, right? It still takes two other beings to create and birth you, if you will. And so I think that's something that we forget is, we get into this mentality of I came into this world alone, I'm gonna go out alone. And I'm recognizing that's not entirely true. It's more so you came into this world because of others, but the journey of learning and knowing yourself then starts, and that is on your own, but you have support, you have people available. And so I'm starting to really lean into that more, and recognize the people that are around me truly have my best interest at heart. And I think that's a big part of what makes it so hard to have that vulnerability with anybody is, are you going to take advantage? Are you telling me, things that I just want to hear? Or are you truly seeing something and calling it out as it is? And so, be picky about the people in your life and don't be afraid to stress test. And I don't mean go intentionally pick a fight. That's obviously not something that I would want anybody to do, but it's more so ask the hard questions of your friends. And if you can do it in a raw and organic way, not to say that some planned conversations aren't a good thing, but sometimes it's just helpful to, one, be clear about what you're wanting to ask. I think that's a big part of it is, sometimes I'll get in conversations with people about myself or how I'm doing things, and I don't know how to articulate what I'm really trying to ask. So with my partner, I always want to know his opinion because he matters to me and he's a very intelligent man and I trust him and his perspective. So, sometimes I got to ask, hey, do you sometimes feel like I'm overly emotional or clingy, about my interactions with you? I try to be specific when I can. I'm still working on it. So I'm sure if he's listening, there are probably moments where that's not even close to what you did. So I get it. But yeah, it is definitely something I would challenge everyone to do. Friend, family, whomever you consider close to you, and who you respect their opinion of, mentors, whomever, ask those hard questions. Ask them to, shed light on, sometimes even as basic as why do you interact with me, or why do you support me so much? Or, what's the root of what keeps us enclosed? Because I think there's a bit of us that are afraid to admit that some of our acquaintances are just from proximity, are just from, you were there and it was easy. I like to think of high school in that regard. There are very few people that I'm still in close connection with from high school. And I'm recognizing a lot of those friendships, not to say that like childhood friendships of any sort are not meaningful and can't stand the test of time. There's plenty of examples from it. But I also understand that there's friends in the moment, and then there's friends who are lifelong. And I don't even want to say friends in the moment. I really have been a lot more strategic in my speech around that, because the word friend is becoming such a heavier weight, but not in a bad way. It's like giving you this title is like a promotion, to say that you are my friend has such a deeper meaning than, it's someone I just kick it with. Like, they're fun to hang out with, right? Same thing with best friend. I had to start getting really careful about who I actually call that, because I definitely feel like those who are considered your best friends are the ones who test you the most. Like, we got to go through some shit. You know what I mean? Like, we have to have our attitudes and our spirits kind of clash a little bit, because I need to know that even if I'm being bullheaded, or even if I'm having a moment, that you're able to check me, call me out, and we can have a dialogue about how to be better to each other, or how to go about the situation in a different way. So tribes are real. I think that's an aspect of culture that we've stripped away because it can cause so much tension. And I think it's because we don't do it in the right way. You can have a tribe and still be able to interact and flow, in and out of all types of circles. I've always been someone who has had multiple circles of friends. And now I understand that it is an aspect of myself that particular group meets, right? And even when I try to bring them all together, sometimes there are great connections that are formed between those groups, and sometimes they stay separate. And that's okay. I used to not be okay with that. Yeah, I used to be so up in arms if groups of friends wouldn't get together, if groups of friends wouldn't be open to meeting new people. And now I recognize that it's because it's not always meant to be. Like, it's not always meant for you to bring every relationship and connection in one big circle. I think I do try to make my friend groups aware of the others, because I do see value in networking, and sometimes your close group of friends is the network that you need. They are the ones that you need to bring together. And I've noticed now that I've been more strategic and inclusive of the people that I surround myself with, that when I do have moments of bringing them together, which is like, fun stuff like my birthday, for example, um, all of them got to meet each other and hang out and spend the time that they felt was appropriate for themselves, and with me, and, still be able to form connections, or at least have a good time in the moment together. And some of it did spark some great ideas, and people meeting up and things like that. But I think that is just something that I just am trying to be more thoughtful and conscious of nowadays. Is just, not everybody is for everybody. That is okay. Not everybody that you meet who's a fun time needs to be in your inner circle. Like, I'm finding the friends that I know would be fun to travel with. I'm finding the friends that I know if I wanted to go, in the mountains, and have, a very spiritual experience, like those people that I can do that with. I know that at the end of the day, this particular group of people that I've been very vulnerable and open with will rally behind me if I need help and support. And it is coming to that realization that makes it so beautiful to say that I truly have a tribe. And they're all, these tribes are in multitude. I don't want to limit and say that like you guys are just in this one group and you'll forever be in this one group. No, it might just be how we met. Um, but I can talk about just as much spiritual stuff with like my two best friends from college, than I can with like my best friends that I met through a mutual job, right? Um, and it is never to say that those circles can never intertwine. And, some of them are kind of mirrors of each other. I just get different versions, right? But um, it is, there's just such peace in knowing that, and knowing that I have finally arrived to a group of people that I can see myself with for the rest of this lifetime of, what I have to give to this world, and that they will honor and support me and carry me on. I think that is something that is beautiful and a great thing to settle into, especially this being year 30, and it's been a little rocky with the global pandemic, of course, but it's really important. And so it makes doing things like this, like starting new adventures, or being vulnerable to total strangers, which I hope we don't have to be for much longer, but and especially as I walk this walk of dealing with a disease that has been around, for a long time, but it's one of the top 10 killers in the US for sure of reported cases, because it can be very sneaky. Um, it makes doing this more worth it, because I know that they are going to gut check me. I know that they're going to help me in those moments of struggle. They're going to help me um, when I just want to give up and feel down. And that is important. Anything that you are doing that requires you to strip away everything that you know and gain new information and try things out, you need a support system. I know our generation right now, even growing up, there was always just this aspect of I can do bad all by myself. And I definitely have examples of that throughout my life, but it's so crazy to tear down everything that, your parents and your grandparents and your great grandparents have brought you up on, because there wasn't, on the surface, there wasn't room. And now we look at people who were able to break out of that cycle, break out of the almost brainwashing, if you will, and be able to just say, hey, no, that's one way, but I don't have to do the whole American dream of, you know, um, go to school for however long. And if you don't do school, you work, and you save and you save and you save. And you have these, small moments of life that you experience with other people. And then now you have kids. And now all of your hopes and dreams and everything else like that, you put on them because you feel like you've missed the opportunity to do what you want to do. And that's not the case at all. And I'm grateful. My parents have definitely never projected their dreams on me. I know they just wanted to see consistency, and they weren't sure how to always deal with kind of like my ADHD of being into one thing and really excited and energetic about it, and then being into another thing. And it's because I'm a, one of my top 5 strengths, if you will, is learner. I like to hoard skills and information because I just feel a draw and a connection to them for whatever reason, and they've served me later on. And I've learned how to tone it down a little bit, of like, some ventures are worth jumping into immediately, some are worth just kind of like a hobby like stage, if you will, and some you just, all right, that's cool, let me live vicariously through somebody else and watch them enjoy it and do it. um and I'm grateful that my parents, you know challenged me to challenge everything, even if it was them sometimes. Dad, I don't remember the exact date and time, but I remember we were living, in Fort Worth. And he told me and my sister, we got in a big fight at one point. And he told me and my sister, if I'm wrong about something, like, tell me I'm wrong. And I'm not saying it'll be easy. I'm not saying that, I'm always going to understand in the moment, but like, mark the day, which I clearly didn't do, but tell me I'm wrong. And I think that has been something that has stuck with me as I've gotten older. And when I had my first like really big fight with my dad, um, oh my God, it was scary. Like, you're talking about a man who could look at me and I just cry, because I get so nervous and I respect the hell out of him. Um, and I want him to be proud. I want him to validate that I am a good person and that he raised a good kid, which he, does, but I just, sometimes it doesn't always stick. Um, and so being able to have that release of like, it doesn't matter if you're family or friend, blood or not, we need to be able to have authentic conversations with each other and be able to, say the stuff that you might not want to hear. And he's now reverted to, um, you know, you might take what I say and put it on the shelf. That's kind of his way of like, I'm sharing this with you. I don't expect that you have to take this advice. This is just my perspective and how I see it, and what it sounds like and what, I know of you and how this could possibly support or, not support you, right? But it's my choice. And I think even from a parenting perspective, we always come into this place of like, we don't have a choice in what we absorb. We don't have a choice in like what lessons they decide to teach us. But I think our generation right now is really working towards breaking those generational curses and working with our older generation to like understand. I have such a deeper relationship with my parents, even though I'm still very bad about like calling, all the time and visiting. But I know that they don't worry about me in the same way. And when, we have these conversations on anything, like it really does feel like that. It doesn't feel like a parent telling the child what to do. It's just a perspective of someone I came from, if that makes sense. Um, but all of that to say, choose your circles very carefully. It is okay to be strategic, but still be open. Definitely don't be so choosy that you close yourself off from opportunity and possibility. If there are people who are willing to, make the effort of building with you in whatever form that is, definitely reciprocate and see how you feel about it and be honest. One thing that I love about, one of my friend groups, is we don't really beat each other up, if we're quiet, you know. We all have our passions and things that we're trying to build and our legacies that we want to leave. And so I think as adults, no one really teaches you that it's okay to not be joined at the hip. School has a way of joining you at the hip with someone because you have a lot more free time and less responsibility, and so you can just spend time and really have these deep bonds. But having these type of relationships as an adult, you have to change that. You have to recognize people um, have jobs, people have families and other relationships, and there's only so much time in the day, and you have to dedicate your time as it best serves you. Um, so it's always important to be thoughtful about, do I even have the availability to be the type of friend that you're asking me to be? And don't project, don't project that like, because I'm the nurturing type and I want to take care of everybody and I'm, want to nurse you back to health if you're sick or whatever, that I need to expect that from my other friends. I need to expect that they will nurture me and mother me and, pay attention to all the little details to help me out. If that's not who they are, I can't expect myself from them. And that's a huge lesson I've been learning the past, 2 years is I cannot expect what I would do out of someone else. And that's really left me open and has really built up my ability to walk forward in battling, and living with this disease and trying to figure out ways to um, be better to my body and not only be better to it, but find ways to listen to it and heal. Because this isn't a permanent thing. And this disease, guys, does not have to be something that you're just stuck with. And I think there are a lot of people who have just decided to be stuck with it and have given up because there was nowhere to turn or no one to talk to who was in a similar space to be able to know that you can still fight. And it doesn't have to be this intense thing. Now, granted, I'm always down for a great action scene, but if it is simple as, only have your sugar in the morning right now, right? And limit that if you can, maybe do half the sugar you do in your coffee. And don't drink another cup, don't do another midday afternoon. I need to have this sugary coffee drink, this late because your body processes this longer. It takes way longer to break down sugar and the entire process that it goes through than some of the other things like fat and protein. So even if it's just making a small change for yourself, do it and let your support system know, like, hey, I'm trying to be more conscious about this. And be ready too, because, my partner is very much one, he can be drill sergeant if I need him to. He's never done that, but he's always been supportive. Like, how can I help you? And if I, there have been moments where he's like, okay, take another bite of this ice cream that we might be sharing, and then let's call it quits. And there have been moments where I'm like, no, I want to have it, and he lets me because he did his due diligence of like, hey, you might want to chill on that. And I think that's something we need to be more thoughtful of and listen to more. But it starts with listening to ourselves and our bodies and really knowing and understanding. I, for a while, would just kind of ignore, checking my blood sugar and taking my medication. And I don't feel different. That's the crazy thing about this disease is it doesn't feel like anything's wrong. It depends on the person, on what you experience and feel. But it is never too late to really try. And I know that sounds weird from a disease aspect because there are consequences of, ignoring something for so long. But as long as you have breath, as long as you are able to make conscious decisions, you have an opportunity to try. And so, for me, that's been facing my doctor. That's been, coming to terms with when I check my blood sugar in the morning. Like, if the number is not great, it's not great. And I need to be thoughtful throughout the day about it. Consistency, like, my numbers were pretty high this morning, but I checked my numbers at like 11:30 in the morning. I hadn't eaten anything, so that was also a shocker. And then I realized, oh, well, wait, I didn't actually take my meds until like 11 or so the night before. So even consistency in what time that you're taking your medication, you really should do your best to take it at the same time. Stuff like that. And it'll also help me understand maybe there's something off with my meter. Technology fails. I have a Bluetooth, 1-drop meter, and I still have my old one. And when I saw that crazy number this morning, I was like, okay, I might need to go and get new batteries for the other meter and just kind of, it's not it doesn't connect to my phone or anything. I would have to log it, but maybe I should do both just to make sure. And, I am due for my 90-day blood work, which will also give you a bigger picture, which I know is not going to be the best picture I want to see, but information helps. And sometimes we can't ignore the information that we need to have in order to know where to move forward. But your support system, your tribe, your group, your besties, whatever you want to call them, they're going to be a huge part of how you move forward, because you need to have people around you who are willing to nudge you and bear the brunt of your reaction sometimes as you walk this walk. And choose wisely. If you've got a group of friends, and definitely we'll talk about this in a later episode, but if you've got friends who have to mock you every time you go out to eat, and I'm a product of it. Like, me and my friends have gone through rounds of this, and again, we've recognized and apologized and worked together on understanding that wasn't the healthiest thing to do. But, if you've got people that are like, oh, well, hold on, don't give this to Taylor. She can't have this because, she got the diabetes and, she can't have all the sugar. Check that, check that energy and be mindful. If you have to say something multiple times about like, hey, you really don't have to acknowledge that. Like, I'm an adult or whatever. Cool. But if it's more of a thoughtful way, like, hey, Taylor, we're going here to this restaurant for brunch. I wanted to let you know, I did find the menu. So, wanted to make sure that you had it. If there's any choices or anything that, we need to kind of pay attention to ahead of time, or if we need to change the venues, those are all helpful reactions because one, you understand your circle is trying to be considerate. And then two, like you are able to have that moment in private. Anytime like I go out to any food establishment with my friends, I look at the menu, even when we're on the way, because I can find food, right? Or I can eat beforehand or, whatever. I can adjust myself to whatever's going on. Like I don't need it to be a big spectacle on what's going on with me and my nutrition. So definitely check that energy if you've got people who just seem to hound you more than help you in those moments. And we'll do a deeper dive later on. But yeah, so that's all I really wanted to share is really just how important it is for friend groups and how important it is for you to choose the people that are going to serve you best and that you can reciprocate that to best. Because it matters. I know that there's billions of people on this earth. It does not mean you have to know all of them. It does not mean you have to be friends with all of them. Sometimes it's just nice to like just be kind to those, people and just interact with them and have a good time in the moment. If, I've definitely got some, in the moment drunken homies that are in my phone that I'm like, I don't know you, or, this kind of thing. And it was just fun for the moment. It doesn't always mean, that like we need to actually connect. So I hope you guys are having a great day and rest of your week heading into the weekend. Feel free to reach out to me if you have questions or thoughts on this episode. I would love to hear what you guys think, or shout out to your tribes. Tag your group of friends. In the comments. Tell me your stories. I want to know because I think it's helpful for people to see like these things exist and everybody can have them. And it's just a matter of being like open and ready for it. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And just say hi in general, although my inner circle is pretty solid right now, it does not mean that I'm not open and welcome to connecting and hearing other experiences. So thank you again for your time and effort and energy in this. Until next time.